Today on Libertas video, we continue to make this Aguilar Gauntlet look a whole lot better. Welcome to Libertas Video, the channel dedicated to encouraging, entertaining, and inspiring you through costume and prop builds and reviews. Now, everything we're going to be talking about in this video and using will be linked in the description below. Some of those will be affiliate links, so if you use them, we'll receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. Additionally, you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Libertas Video, and if you're a fan of what we're doing here in this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. First off, we wanted to say a huge thank you for all of you who connected with us after our What's Next video. A lot of the comments that we received were very encouraging and gave us a lot of great ideas of how to move forward, so thank you again. Now, a few videos ago, we were going through this whole process of distressing, weathering this Aguilar Gauntlet using only black shoe polish. And in that video, I asked whether or not you'd like to see us do a little bit more to it, and we got a lot of positive responses to it. So we're gonna expand this into 2 additional videos. In this video, we are going to be distressing it and adding some more battle damage to the gauntlet, and then in the next video, we're gonna be improving the look of the metal on the hidden blade. In order to make this gauntlet look a lot more realistic, first we're gonna think about our character and how they would use it. Then we're gonna look at some real world materials to get some reference for how we're going to paint this. Starting off, this is Aguilar's Gauntlet. What do we know about him? Well, he's an assassin from Spain. In the movie, they depict that as an arid climate with a lot of sand and dust. He's a free-running expert. He is a proficient archer, but he does mostly hand-to-hand combat. In the movie, the hidden blade is essentially his primary weapon. But how does all this information help us? Starting with the free-running, we know he will be using his hands a lot. A lot of wear and tear will happen around the hands. Scuffs on and near the palm would be expected. You'd also see some stretching and folding of the leather. Tucking and rolling might also add some scuffs to the side of the gauntlet. You can then imagine that using the hidden blades as his primary weapons, Aguilar will have fended off quite a few daggers or sword strikes, so we can expect to see a few cuts on the leather as well. Now, these are all areas that we can address with paint and more abrasive materials. It is worth noting, though, that if we had done this in the correct order, all of this would be taking place before we applied the black shoe polish weathering technique. But now we're going to take a look at that worn leather as a reference. Here I have an old camera case that belonged to my grandfather. It is roughly from the 1940s, but it has good signs of use and age. You will note here on the ridge where the leather would fold the most that you can see where a lot of the stretching had occurred from constantly opening and closing the case. This is a great reference for the folds near the hands of our gauntlet. You can also see here where the case would come into contact with most outside objects. This has rubbed away the leather. Also, there are areas where you can find cracking of the leather where it has been dried out. In all of these locations, you'll notice that we can see the original color of the leather, where the dye has either worn away or cracked off. So with this as a reference, we will begin to paint the gauntlet. To start out, I mix all my paints in an effort to get that natural leather color. For this, I used brown, red, white, yellow, and orange acrylic paints. I then use a sponge brush to paint directly onto the gauntlet in a similar fashion to what was done with the shoe polish. I put a nice layer on and wipe away with a paper towel. Now I'm going for that worn leather look that we saw on the folds of the camera case. So I am wiping away most of that paint so that it only remains in those deep cracks. I then move on to painting the tips of the ridges on the handguard for that worn away look. Here though, I wipe away most of it as I will try something else for this effect. I then move on to the handguard and haphazardly lightly dab around the top as to not get that paint too deep here either. I only want the topmost surface to look worn on this piece. Moving on, I crumple up a piece of tinfoil into a tight ball. This provides me with a lot of random texture that I hope will help create a similar cracking effect on the leather. In any case, it does create a very interesting randomized stamp with lots of possibilities for adding distressing to this gauntlet.
Even after a short go at it, you can see a vast difference between the before and after. At this point, however, I found that based on how I was applying the paint and wiping it away, I was getting a much more dusty look on the gauntlet, which is actually a happy accident. It really makes this gauntlet look like it's fresh out of that wagon chase scene in the movie, or fresh out of a mission in Spain, rather than, say, the gauntlets as they were seen when Cal used them in the modern day, a couple hundred years after they were used by Aguilar. And I love this look.
Now, as we're going through some of these tips and techniques, we wanted to take a moment to ask you if there's any tips or techniques that you have used that you could share with the community to benefit everyone. And if so, put them in the comments section below.
Now I move on to weathering the edges with a rounded file. This will replicate the worn edges we saw on the camera case where it came into most contact with other surfaces. I found that taking the file left to right, or right to left, while pushing or pulling the file gave me the best results with this rubbery material of the gauntlet. I then take this across the areas I expect would receive the most abuse. Not only does this expose the original color of the prop, but it provides the texture of that scraping as well. I then use the painting and filing together to weather this gauntlet to my own tastes. My advice would be to take this process slow. This will give you the most control over your outcome. Now, if you do not want to use the file, simply grab a stiff bristled brush and rub the leather coloring paint we mixed up at the beginning and gently rub across the hard edges that you would have filed down. This will give a similar result, but without the texture. I then get to the point where I want to add the battle damage, so I'll be using 3 tools to replicate fending off stray daggers or sword strikes. I will use a box cutter, a multi-saw, and a hacksaw. Starting with the box cutter, the sharp edge easily digs into the rubber and creates a clean line. However, due to the self-healing properties of rubber, the cut is not easy to see unless pulling the rubber apart, so this won't really work. I then use a multi-saw to try to widen that original cut. While it does a good job of showcasing the scuffed effect, the teeth on the saw are just a little too small. And if you're not careful, you'll quickly get a cut that looks like it was sawed rather than sliced. So this will not work either. The hacksaw ended up providing the best result. The 10 teeth per inch blade gave me a semi-deep cut that was very clean and precise. So I finished the battle damage with this tool. My advice is to not go overboard. It would be really easy to add too many cuts or crisscross them so it will quickly look very unrealistic. Just think about how blades would be fended off on a gauntlet and apply them that way. Now, if you don't like the look of the raw rubber, you can always paint the scars with our leather colored paint. Just use a stiff bristle brush for control and you should be set. This will give you a very good blade cut that looks fresh out of a battle. Now, I unfortunately did not record this bit, but if you wanted a cut that looked a little bit more old, like from a previous battle, you could fill the scar with black paint. Then just hit the upper edges of that scar with the leather colored paint, and it'll give off the impression that the scarring has filled in with dirt and grime, and therefore it looks like it's from a previous battle. But it's up to you on what you prefer.
And that's going to do it for adding some additional weathering and battle damage to this Aguilar Gauntlet. In the next video, we are going to be making the hidden blade look a little bit more realistic. So if you don't want to miss that, hit that notification bell. Again, all of the items that we've been using in this video will be linked in the description below. And if you want more information on this whole entire process, check out our website. If you have found this video useful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so that other people can find it as well. And if you're a fan of what we're doing here on this channel, hit that subscribe button. As always, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Libertas Video. But that's going to do it for us here. We'll see you on the next Libertas video.